the talk I'm going to give today has two concepts in mind. One is altitude, and the other is, for lack of a better term, cognitive systems failure. So it's about field work, figuring out how to look at cognitive systems failure, whatever that might be. And so keep these in mind as we're going through all of this. Why am I looking at altitude? The reason is it sort of provides short-term brain dysfunction. When people go up too high, their brain starts to do strange things. They experience strange phenomena, disconnection from their body, sound perception changes, all sorts of crazy stuff. And you're asking, I'm in neuroscience and I went up to altitude. Am I still okay? I don't know. But for me, it's about developing tools for research and for medical professionals to use to investigate brain function. This idea of identifying cognitive systems failure, and just some operational definitions for you, where I've loosely defined a cognitive system as a bunch of brain areas working together to facilitate some kind of cognition. So the lab I come out of, Ron Skelton's lab, spatial cognition, requires a bunch of areas of the brain working together with the visual system, even the auditory system, so that we can interact with our world and so we don't get lost. Now, detecting the activity of these systems, there are a bunch of ways being developed, and people have gone way into crazy mathematical solutions and whatnot. And what I want to do is identify what types of math can be applied to brain function and to detect change in the activity of these systems. So to detect if someone's spatial navigation or spatial system is beginning to malfunction. Okay. So the idea is, another idea I have is that, okay, there's a lot of work being done comparing individuals to normative databases to say that, hey, this individual compares to a normative database that we created for Alzheimer's disease or Alzheimer's dementia. But the truth is, when they create these normative databases, they're comparing people with Alzheimer's to controls and nothing else, right? So, you know, because someone might have increased theta activity coming from their hippocampus, it could be because they have Alzheimer's, or it could be for, you know, half a dozen or more other reasons. So the idea here is to detect change in brain function or change in these cognitive systems over time. And so the concept is you get someone into a clinic and you get them in for a baseline or two, 1 session, 2 sessions, 3 sessions, maybe every 6 months they go and get a quick assessment. Now EEG equipment and whatnot is becoming very, very inexpensive these days, so conceivably someone could even do this at home. I don't know, there's not much quality control around that, but that's the general idea. And then maybe they drift towards some of these characterized dysfunctional concepts where, oh, this guy's moving towards failure in spatial processing. Maybe they need to go to the doctor and have something looked at. I don't know. So the technology to analyze these systems could be applied for various things, and it's a clinician's job or an MD's job to look at these things. And you could even use it to evaluate therapy and training to see if someone is taking a course or a computer-based course and improving their spatial navigation or some other process to see if it's actually having an impact on brain function. And then of course there's the pharmaceutical industry and what they might do with that. So an example of a cognitive system would be something that helps someone perform well on a digit span task. Okay. Another example of a cognitive system might be one that helps someone navigate a maze. So this is from Dr. Skelton's work, his virtual Morris water task. And for those of you who are in the psychology science here, probably recognize the old rat maze in a pool of milk, trying to find a hidden platform. And so we require spatial function to do that. And so the idea of systems, this is some data that I got out of Ron Skelton's lab. We collected this when I was doing my PhD here. And what the analysis tool allowed us to do was to essentially locate 19 areas of the brain active in his paradigm. There's probably more, but this is sort of what we could find. This is all EEG based stuff here when we've projected activities on a head model. And what we have here are different views of the cortex. Okay, and these green areas just represent the areas that were found to be doing something in that paradigm, something differentially in the paradigm. And so for his cue-based task, for example, we end up with that sort of network. Okay, and you notice he's doing spatial navigation with objects present, but they have to find a platform that's kind of down here somewhere. So there's some calculations going on, and notice the red here is all in the right hemisphere with a little network. But the idea is to basically take the cognition, create a schematic diagram, and call her done. Okay. Well, everyone will have a slightly different schematic diagram because of individual differences and lateralization and whatnot. And this is one of the reasons why it's about characterizing the individual against themselves, ideally, rather than a normative database. Okay. In the safest sense, you could just look for some deviation away from their statistical baseline. And if they deviate in some statistical way, then maybe you send them to their doctor. So I'm about building the technology, and so I've got some online processing tools I'm putting up, and we've started an initiative to collect data from a 40+ population over time. But the real issue is I want to develop algorithms now, and I need some way of measuring brain function that's changing over time. And where do I do that? I can do it at altitude. And so the idea is to go do some field work and record over multiple sessions and get some data and figure out what features in the data are important for distinguishing meaningful change of specific systems of the brain.